Hey, what's up guys? I love some great bark on my barbecue. It's that delicious black crust that turns your barbecue into the stuff that dreams are made of. The problem is it usually takes 12 hours or more of smoking to get really nice bark. So I looked for a solution to get great bark every single time without worrying about all that, and I think I found it. In this video, I'm gonna test a secret ingredient in my spice rub and see if it results in better bark in less time. Let's get to it. All right, let's start with the rub. I'm going to do a basic rub with a half a cup of brown sugar, half a cup of coarse black pepper, and a half a cup of kosher salt. And now for the secret ingredient to get that nice black bark, we're looking at some activated charcoal powder here. It's really black and it's very finely powdered. Now you might be thinking, okay Steve, we cook our barbecue with charcoal, why are we putting it on our barbecue? That doesn't make sense. Well, I don't blame you for thinking that, but hear me out because there's some juicy knowledge about to come your way. This is food-safe activated charcoal made from coconut shells. It is very different from the charcoal that you buy from the store for your grill or for your offset smoker. People use it to whiten their teeth, they eat it or they drink it to clear out toxins from their stomach. There's a whole bunch of other things people use it for. Is it a miracle drug that cures everything? No, but from what I've read, it's food safe and it's okay to eat. One thing I did read is that it might make medications less effective. So if you take your meds and then you swill it down with a bunch of activated charcoal at the same time, then it might make your meds less effective. So try to avoid that, but otherwise I can't find any like major red flags about it. There's even commercial barbecue rubs coming out with this stuff in it and they're saying it is safe. So if I had to make a guess, I'd say this stuff is going to become a lot more popular in barbecue rubs in the next few years. So definitely watch out for that. So having said that, make sure you get activated charcoal from coconut shells and it's marked as food safe. Very important that it's marked as food safe. I got this package from Amazon and it's very low cost. The link to buy it off Amazon is in the description section below, so check that out and buy some and test it for yourself. Now for this experiment, we're going to use a 10-pound pork butt, bone in. I'm going to slather on some mustard as a binder. This is gonna help the rub stick and help that bark out. And now I'm gonna sprinkle on the rub and make sure I cover everything well. Now it looks like I'm putting a ton of rub on, but when you pull the pork apart, you're only getting a tiny bit of bark and spice on each little piece of that pork. So you can definitely go a bit crazy with the rub on this particular cut of meat. All right, so I'll apply this rub and it actually looks like it just came out of a 15-hour smoke and we haven't even put it in the cooker yet, which is pretty cool. So let's actually put this pork butt on the smoker and see what happens. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail here, but in summary, I'm smoking it at 225 degrees Fahrenheit on the Pit Boss 456D with some hickory pellets. On the Pit Boss, or really any pellet smoker, the fire pot is underneath the meat, so I cook the pork butt fat side down to protect it from the heat. Otherwise, you can really burn the bottom of your butt, so yeah, definitely cook it fat side down, especially on a pellet smoker. Every few hours, I'm checking back and spraying it down with some water just to keep that bark moist and absorbing more smoke throughout the cook. You can see about 5 hours in, the bark looks pretty much the same, but it's actually looking drier and it's set onto the pork butt now, so it's almost fused with the outside of the meat. It's also cracking a little bit and it's showing that red meat underneath, which looks awesome. It looks super cool right now. Without that charcoal in this rub, right now it would look really deep red in color, but definitely not anywhere near this black in color. At around 165 degrees internal, the pork butt actually stalled out and it stopped rising in temperature. This was probably about 5 or 6 hours into the cook. If you guys don't know what the stall is, then check out my other videos. I'll link some in the top right of the screen right now so you can check out that for more information where I talk about it in more detail. I then continued to cook it at 300 until the internal temperature hit 195 degrees Fahrenheit. This is when all the fat and the connective tissue really start rendering down and it gets to the point where you can start pulling apart the pork really easily. Then I just probe it, I felt it underneath until it was nice and jiggly and tender, and I knew for sure it was done. So at that point it comes off. You're gonna wanna rest it until it comes back down in temperature to around 165 degrees Fahrenheit, 150 degrees Fahrenheit. Really important to rest it every single time because it's continuing the cooking process and it's gonna get way more tender if you rest it. Again, I have tons of videos where I talk about temperature, wrapping, when the meat is done, and everything you need to know about all that. So I'll link a playlist in the top right for you to check that out if you want to learn more. After letting it rest, I started pulling it apart. Now, I thought I was going to use a fork and some tongs for this, but actually I just decided to pull it apart with my hands, caveman style. And really, you're going for it to be so tender that you can actually pull it apart with your hands. So that's what you should be looking for. And as I'm pulling this apart, you can see there's a nice pink smoke ring, tons of juices in there, and deep black bark on the outside. It looks awesome. So right now, as far as appearances go, I think this activated charcoal powder does make a better looking bark in less time and with less effort. After all, we do eat with our eyes first, and when people see that black bark, the smoke ring, the juicy strands of pork, they're gonna go crazy. As far as taste goes, I can tell you that you can't taste the charcoal powder at all. It's completely neutral apart from texture. Now, I've had a lot of really good barbecue with great bark that formed over 12 to 15 hour cooks unwrapped. So it had that huge amount of time to develop that nice bark. And it doesn't really match the taste of that, I'll be honest with you guys. But it still comes pretty close, and it still looks nice, and it's good, and it's crispy. So I would say this charcoal powder is great to add to rubs if you're really going for that nice black bark and you want the aesthetics of what that looks like, but you don't want to cook it for like 12 plus hours unwrapped. Or if you have something like a brisket flat that dries out easily, you want to wrap it maybe 3 or 4 hours into the process, but you still want to get good bark, this might be a good solution for that brisket flat and keeping it nice and juicy with a nice looking bark on the outside. This is mainly about aesthetics, but as I said, you eat with your eyes first. Now in the next video, I'm going to show you another experiment where I inject pork butt with barbecue phosphates to see if they actually result in more moisture and juiciness. This is another awesome experiment. You guys definitely have to check this out. They use phosphates a lot at barbecue competitions, so this is a test to see whether they actually do anything. Click that video in the top left of the screen, and I'll see you there.